Hi, I'm Peter Beaugard, and today I want to talk about two things. First, the elusive insight, and second, DetroitSHOP. And this works. So first, I'm going to talk about what's an insight and why they're important. How many of you have read Daniel Pink's book, A Whole New Mind? A couple. Okay, and so I read that book a long time ago, and what it said was, kind of the subtext was the MFA is the new MBA. And what that made me think was, okay, I have an MFA, so I can go become an investment banker or a trader or a stockbroker or whatever I want. But the truth behind that is what he was saying is that fundamentally industry is changing. And with that, we're going from service to experiences. And really, businesses have to start to understand empathy. And what's behind empathy is this idea of being able to take observations and connect them with opportunities. And the value of the MFA was the fact that it gave you an understanding of empathy. So what I'm going to do today is talk about the importance of the insight. And the insight's an interesting thing. It's one of these things that's often better described by what it is not than what it is. And I imagine that lots of you have heard of insights. How many people think they can give me a definition of what an insight is? None. No takers. So what I'll start is first with an example of what an insight is not. And this is Detroit is a food desert. There's several reasons why this isn't an insight. The first is that it's a metaphor. The second is that it's not true. And most importantly is that this is actually an observation, an introspection, and a piece of information. It does nothing to kind of leverage an existing platform or provide potentiality. So if we take this same statement and we talk about what it is as an insight, it's the idea that while there are more than 1,500 full-service grocery stores in Detroit, residents that find it challenging to access a variety of grocery items given the scale of the city. And so what we've done here is we've taken an observation and we've converted it, if this goes forward, into a fresh, potent, energizing truth that's built on a core tension. And so you can see the core tension is the idea that, okay, there are 115 grocery stores, but the challenge is that getting access to a variety of grocery items. And so what this means is that it's a synthesis that drives an intuitive leap. And I think that what Daniel Pink was talking about is that the MFA is very good at driving an intuitive leap. There's another author that I like to look at, and his name is Clayton Christensen. And he's written a book called The Innovator's DNA. And in that, he talks about the idea that an insight cannot be learned because associate thinking is a cognitive skill. And what I think is that that's short-sighted. And what it is that there's several key kind of components to a good insight. And there's several devices that I'm going to go over right now that help you form insights. So the first is that not all insights are the same. So the insight that I showed you previously was actually driven by data. It's a data-driven insight. There's several other types of insight. There's behavioral insights. So it's looking at what compensatory behaviors are, how people use items. The automobile industry is very good at when they're looking at fuel-efficient cars, they turn to the hypermilers in California. And they say, what are you doing? How are you tinkering? They pick people on the fringe and they move them mainstream. The next one is a functional insight. So this is oftentimes in manufacturing. What you'll do is you'll look at the elasticity within a system, and you'll say, I can change that, but I can't change this, and what happens when I do that? The third is looking at kind of an emotional insight. So it's the idea of how does this make me feel? What does this make me want to do? Another one is a situational insight. So that's based on kind of time and place. And they kind of go on. And perhaps the most important one is a causal insight. So it's understanding that if I do one thing, there's a chain reaction to another thing. And what that does is it moves me into talking about, I'm out of order, unraveling the situation. And what this means is kind of peeling back the layers. Think of it as an onion. You kind of have to dig deeper and ask, what's the question behind the question? And how do we kind of unleash the potentiality of that? What are the latent needs of the user? And the final one is that you should generate a reaction. And this is to say that a smile is good, but a conversation is better. And when I talk to my students and I talk to my clients, I say, tell me why you love this or why you hate this. Because you're often much more articulate about what you love and hate than what you like or dislike. And so that you should really try to desire a reaction, and that this has to be based off of social ethics. That there has to be a responsibility to kind of improving the lives of those around you. It can't be done just for polemic or just for provocation. And so what this is leading up to is kind of where I come in and talk about DetroitSHOP. And DetroitSHOP is Lawrence Tech's downtown kind of innovation lab that was founded by Amy Dinas, and I had the opportunity to co-teach last semester. And what this lab is, so you can see here, it's actually in the Dime building. And it's a way that we kind of engage graphic design students, architecture students, urban planning students, and business management students, and using design as an agent of change. And what we've done is we've partnered with Quicken Loans, and we've used their canvas, the Woodward Corridor, to propose solutions. Today I'm going to show you 3 of those solutions. And you can kind of see that we've marked those out: Project 1, Project 2, Project 3, and then, for reference, where we are today. So the first project that I'm going to talk about is Kresge Building Remix. And so the insight that drives this is that while Detroit was a city defined by the automobile, it's now a city that needs to define the role of the automobile in a car-centric city. And what you'll see is that this insight unlocks core opportunity, and that's to create new experiences by modifying the physical barriers of buildings to emphasize destinations, promote multi-use circulation, and highlight historical features. What's behind this opportunity is that it's not a product, it's not a service, it's not a business, nor is it an ambition. But what it does is it gives us a platform for multiple solutions. So in this case, what 2 students did is they started to evaluate the Kresge building and think about what it means to define it in a car-centric city. We can't hope that Detroit is Soho because it has a fundamentally different DNA. And what we have to do is author that new DNA based off of the role of the automobile in that city. And the other thing that this does is it talks about kind of using multi-use spaces. So the idea here is not to necessarily spread out, but to promote density in specific nodes. The next project that I'm going to move on to is Detroit Now Open. And what the insight behind this was that rebuilding Detroit's urban core requires construction, but scaffolding and other tools of the trade present obstacles for circulation and engagement. And so what they're looking at here is that, okay, we have to rebuild the city, but tools of the trade interfere with circulation, and how can we start to leverage that as an opportunity to engage users and inhabitants? And so what the 3 students did here is they created a series of scaffolding that was actually multifaceted. And so it had a component of live, it had a component of work, and it had a component of play. And then the opportunity was that these could actually serve as both kind of public-private spaces, but then also ways to advertise and billboard the businesses that are going in here, as well as raise funds for rehabilitating the facades of the buildings themselves. And then this is just day and night shot, kind of the live, work, play, all coming together. And the final one that I'm going to talk to you today about is Connected Hudson. And so the core insight behind this was the challenge with Detroit is not so much an issue of circulation with its inhabitants, but an issue of density with its inhabitants. And so what that's really saying is that it's not about getting people to move around the city, which is often a challenge of the city where you have high density, but this is about getting people to come together. And really some of this is about leveraging the history of Detroit. It was built on technology. How can we start to use technology to promote people to come together? And so what this is it's looking at the history of the Hudson site, using the existing framework there that talks about kind of the building, the technology, and then creating this porous skin that will actually respond to the inhabitants themselves. So if you look closely, you can see boxes. And the idea with those is that they raise and lower the tensile structure based upon the activity in there. So the one thing is if there's one person moving through this site, the whole site responds to that person, giving the feeling of higher density. The other thing that this starts to do is recognize the role of that Hudson lot as a critical hub for the M1 public transit line. And the idea behind this that you can see is that this becomes the destination from coming to the suburbs into Detroit, and it becomes kind of a safe collective space that people can enjoy before going out into the city. And so with that, what I ask you to do is visit us at Detroit, the TEDx labs upstairs, and we have all 19 students' projects from last semester. Thank you.